Hi YouTube, James Baker here, and today I have my good friend Loren Moss from Finance Colombia, right, Loren? Finance Colombia?
Yes,
Yes,
exactly.
among other things. And Loren is on the ground in Colombia, and there was just new elections in Colombia. If you don't know anything about Colombia, they elected a new president, and I just got Loren on here to talk about what that means for everything in Colombia because the new president. So Loren, first of all, thank you for jumping in on this call. I really appreciate you educating me on this because honestly, I don't know that much, and you can educate me and everyone else who sees the video.
Absolutely. So Colombia had their second round, their final round of their presidential elections on June 19th. So in Colombia, you have a first round, and the way the system works is anyone who gets 50% plus one of the vote um, becomes the next president. If nobody gets the majority, then they go to a runoff, and the top two candidates, no matter the party, then compete. And so Gustavo Petro beat the former mayor of Bucaramanga, whose name is Rodolfo Hernandez, um, and will be Colombia's next president. He won by about 50.5% to Hernandez's 47%. In Colombia, there's also something called voto en blanco, where you can vote for none of the above. So you actually, I mean, you don't have to show up to vote like you do in Brazil, but people will show up and they'll just kind of express their discontent by voting none of the above. But anyway, Petro is a very interesting character. He's a long-time politician. Most recently, he has been in the Senate, in the National Senate. The way it works in Colombia is that in the second runoff, the second place vote getter gets a guaranteed kind of a consolation prize and gets a spot in the Senate. And the second place vice presidential candidate gets a place in the legislature, their House of Representatives. So now Petro, who was in the Senate, becomes president. Hernandez becomes a senator. Hernandez's running mate, Marilyn, I forget her last name, she's out of Cali, will get a congressional seat. Now, Petro, before he was senator, was the mayor of Bogota. He's also served in other roles, city council and Congress and different things. But a lot of people, he's also notorious because he once was a leftist rebel as part of the M19 revolutionary group back in the 80s, back in his youth. He served some time in prison for arms, not really trafficking, but for harboring arms to use. There was an infamous raid by the M19. They took hostages in the Dominican embassy once, and they also attacked the Justice Ministry. That was a fatal incident. Petro himself wasn't involved. He was actually in jail at the time. Uh, but anyway, it's been interesting. A lot of people are in the investment sector are freaked out with expats and foreigners like me living in Colombia. You have kind of a range of opinions. You have some people that are very pleased with his victory. You have some people that are panicked. And you have a lot of people in between. I actually was writing an article this morning. The past couple of weeks have been interesting. I mentioned to you, I was at an oil and gas congress
Hmm.
speaking last week. A lot of investors, obviously, Colombia is a big oil producing country, and Ecopetrol, the state controlled giant, had their stock fall by 12% in one day. It trades on New York Stock Exchange under the ticker symbol EC, and investors were clearly spooked. Petro came out since then and made a statement trying to calm investors that even though he is kind of an anti petroleum president, he has promised not to make any drastic changes, though is quite clear when he wants to make a global changes in an energy transition for Colombia. Um, but one of the interesting things that we've seen this week is he's already appointed a foreign minister, which would be equal to our Secretary of State, who is from the Conservative Party, which raised some eyebrows. But the guy does have bona fides as a longtime peace negotiator. He
So
once served.
let
Yeah.
me cut you. Let me cut you off because I want to make it. I want to make it simpler because I'm already. My eyes are glazing over. So
Okay.
so Petro, and I have some notes here. I'm slipping through some snippets here. So Petro is an ex, like they put in the news a lot because I read some articles. Ex like guerrilla guy. He supported that kind of stuff, but that was like 30 years ago, right? And
Yes.
so he's been in local politics and everything, and he just won. And I guess there's two main parties in Colombia that you tried to explain about, right? There's and then the one that Petro is on wasn't in power. So it's like so I sound like an idiot, but it's like how many parties are prominent in Colombia? How many political parties?
You have about 5 or 6 major parties. That's to say, parties with a significant following. It's not a duopoly like we have in the U.S., or it's not like you
So
have in
does it change between parties like when's the election terms? Every 4 years? Every 2 years?
every 4 years, no reelection for president.
Okay, every 4 years, no reelection. Who was the last party, the last president? What's their equivalent?
Ivan Duque is the
Okay.
outgoing president, and he is a political acolyte of Alvaro Uribe, who was a powerful former president and current kind of godfather of his Centro Democratico Party.
Central Democratical Party. So when I compare stuff to the US, like the extremes in the US are the moderates of the Latin Americas, right? Is that like kind of so what's the what's just give me a tax thing. So what like in terms of like is there any potential tax changes? Because right now, like with crypto and with the banks, like right now, if I pay someone in Colombia and they receive money, the bank takes 30% of taxes. Is that something they would ever talk about or consider changing or adjusting?
That is unlikely to go away now because Petro has big social plans and he needs all the money he can get. And if he's going to reduce petroleum exports, which provides 15% of the government's revenues, then he's going to have a huge fiscal deficit that he's going to need to fill. And so he's going to look for new ways to bring in revenues. He's already talked about a wealth tax. Colombia already has a bank transaction tax. I think it's something like a 0.4% on every $1,000 that you move through the banking system. They take out like 4 cents per thousand or something like that. But no, taxes are not going to go down.
Which is every billion pesos, right? So, um, so great. That's a good answer. So Petro is really talking about um, more social programs, right? Like improving infrastructure and helping people that don't have jobs, maybe providing more housing, I guess that kind of stuff, right? And then decreasing petroleum exports.
Yeah, and those two things kind of go against one another because normally the government gets all this petroleum money. Not only does it tax petroleum, but it owns the largest petroleum producer and exports that petroleum. So if it doesn't export that petroleum, then that's reduced revenues for the government in a double penalty because it's not taxing the petroleum, it's not issuing new permits, and the government, the country is going to have to consume the petroleum because if there's no new exploration, then we all have natural gas, like the houses down here have natural gas, just like in the US, like where it goes up to your house. And so it's going to have to consume that. And that's reduced export revenues and reduced taxation on revenues. So the government, I think, is going to be more aggressive in looking for new fiscal sources, though he seems to be trying to signal that he's not going to be as aggressive as some other countries when it comes to things like expropriations or things like that. He just appointed a finance minister who seems to be an orthodox economist, was recently held a UN post, is currently teaching at Columbia University in New York, and nobody's calling him a radical. So he seems to be making moves to kind of calm everybody down, seeing the way that the markets reacted to his election.
Okay, wow. So, and then they have I saw something really cool and progressive that I think most people are going to agree with, that Francia Marquez is the first, I think black woman elected in any kind of office in Colombia, right? Is that am I wrong there?
She's
That's
not the first black woman elected. She's the first black woman elected as vice president. Colombia
okay.
is an interesting country. It actually had a black president in the 1800s. But Francia Marquez, who hails from southwestern Colombia, south of Cali, is elected as she's a environmentalist, a lawyer, and kind of a human rights activist, and she is the new vice president. She has a meeting upcoming with Kamala Harris. She's already met with Colombia's outgoing vice president. So yes, that is it. Now, the weird thing about this last election is that both vice presidential candidates were Black women. So even if the other guy won, his running mate was a Black woman who is a university rector in Cali.
I think I mean, I'm more concerned about fiscal and you know, monetary movements things. That's what my channel's more about. But I think that's great. I think social progress is amazing, and I think more opportunities for different people is awesome. So that's cool. That's a good thing that I think most people are going to agree with. In terms of like their plans and everything, what are the biggest fears that most middle upper class Colombian residents have, and what are like the biggest fears that they have that
Colombia
you've
has
seen?
never elected a leftist president before, leftist in the traditional Latin American context. Colombians have been very spooked by what happened with their neighbors in Venezuela. If you look at what's happening now
For a reason. I mean, their country's full of Venezuelans, yeah, because there's
there's 2
no.
million, roughly 2 million Venezuelan refugees in Colombia right now. You know, you look at what's happened in Nicaragua. The guy was a former rebel, and there are a lot of fears about taking the country, which is not only largely a market economy, but also a close political ally of the United States. And there are people who are worried that the country might go in a radical direction. And so that's what people, the higher income earners, are worried about. There already is sort of a wealth tax here, and you know, you can't line up the right or left in Colombia neatly with the right or left in the US, because even Alvaro Uribe, who's considered a right-wing guy, and socially you can say, you know, he's kind of a hardliner when it comes to anti-insurgency and things like that. But he put into place quite a few policies that would be considered tax and spend. He'd be considered a tax and spend liberal fiscally in the US, if you look at some of the things that he's done. So those things don't really line up well, but people are worried about Petro as one, does he devalue the currency, which he has said in the past that he would like to do. Now, what
What do you
happens is
mean? He
that,
would like to devalue the currency?
yeah, he wants to print money.
What
Now
are the,
he's,
he wants to print money. He doesn't want to devalue the currency. He did.
well,
I mean,
yeah, I mean, basically, but then again, if you
yeah,
print a bunch of, what do they call that, quantitative easing?
yeah, quantitative easing. Well, I mean,
Right.
yeah, well, I mean, we're going through it right now in the US, you know, the inflation, the printing the money, it's devaluing it. I mean, it's still a world currency, you know, or you know, the World Bank and everything, but Colombia has fluctuated greatly in terms of the currency. And right now they could cut a zero off and make the math a little easier for people. I don't know how they do that. But yeah, so I understand people are concerned with devaluation of currency. So getting a lot of money out and you know, potentially being taxed on assets abroad. Because I know that and I'm not a Colombian tax expert, but years ago, not too many years ago, they instituted a safe harbor for Colombians who had assets abroad who didn't report them. And there's a lot of Colombians who just still didn't do it and either left or maybe sheltered it or something. So maybe there's a step up in that kind of reporting and maybe like searching. And that's another fear. So I understand some of these
He said
fears.
he wants to impose a wealth tax on the 4,000 richest Colombians, for example, in this country of 50 million. You already have a country where most people do not pay income tax. His political advisor said that they want to broaden the tax base and lower the limit to where income tax contributions begin, which actually, I think that there's something to be said for that. But what I find weird politically is that they've come out and said that, and they have broad support, at least from their supporters. But when the former finance minister Carrasquillo tried to do that year before last, people took to the streets and riots, even though most of the people who rioted were far below the new tax. We're not going to, the people that would have paid the tax were not the ones that were rioting. which I
Yeah.
found interesting. But a lot of that, you know how these things are political shenanigans and politically motivated. But I do think that you might expect to see more aggressive tax enforcement and investigation, as you mentioned, and as you know, Colombia, like the U.S., taxes on worldwide assets or worldwide income, rather. So it is one of those countries that does that, and that is something that either dual nationals or Colombians or foreign people that decide to reside in Colombia need to talk to an expert about.
Okay, so people who are residing in Colombia, that's a good question because I actually have a number of American and European clients who live in Colombia. With the immigration process, is it going to become harder or easier? I know that the tax stuff is going to change a little bit that you mentioned, but how do you see the immigration processes and all of that?
You know, I've actually heard anecdotally from readers and even from experts. We have some people that specialize in immigration law down here who have told me that the immigration process in the last 2 or 3 years has gotten a lot more difficult, which is interesting. I don't think it has anything to do with the incoming president. It seems to have been a policy decision for whatever reason. I do think that if you have a well-documented case, it seems like you're still okay as long as you can kind of demonstrate everything and make a strong case for yourself. Now, one interesting thing is that even though people in the petroleum and mining sectors and you know, people that are very wealthy in general are a little bit worried, the president has said that he wants to make tourism a priority sector. He seems to want to make it more welcoming for those that want to come and spend money here, either on a short-term basis as a tourist or as an expat or as people have vacation homes. It seems like that's part of their strategy to maybe to counter, okay, well, if we're going to cut off some other sectors, that does seem like an area that they're looking at and that they've made statements and said that they want to promote.
Okay, that makes sense, and that's interesting. So interesting. It's a little overwhelming. So, so
It
trying,
is.
yeah. I mean, so how do you feel personally? Like, tell me what you think about all of this. How's your life going to change
Well, I'll put my
in
bias
terms
on the
in
table.
finance
Right.
Colombia too? Yeah.
My biases are I'm a libertarian capitalist, so you can keep that in mind. However, I can tell you that I think that the outgoing president did a horrible job. Nothing against him personally. He seems like he would have been an excellent foreign minister, I think. But I think that his unpopularity led to the election of this new president. And I think that what happened, and a lot of people I spoke to, even people I'm relatively close to, said that it's not that they want to be, but you know, the scary thing is I heard this with Venezuela 20 years ago. And people said, it's not that I'm a leftist, it's that I'm upset with the way things are going now. Okay.
Mhm.
And their vote for the incoming guy is as a protest vote. That's on the scary side. On the positive side, the past 2 weeks he's been looking at some of the appointments he's made. He seems to be trying to reassure markets. I'm not fleeing the country just yet. He's done some conciliatory things as far as meeting with some political enemies. He's met with Alvaro Uribe, which has surprised a lot of people. And I think that it's kind of a wait and see attitude.
The new president,
I'm sorry.
president, Petro met with Uribe.
Petro met with Uribe this past week. Yes.
Hmm.
Which surprised just about everybody. I'll be publishing an article today on that. And he met with Uribe. He's already met with Rodolfo, the candidate that he beat. Some of Uribe's people are very upset with him with that. Uribe has said, look, we're the opposition, but we want a dialogue. We want to be constructive. And he said, look, you know, we don't
across the aisle, they say, right?
Yeah, you know, which, you know, it's like the old Tip O'Neill, Ronald Reagan days. Maybe they can demonstrate a new thing for us. I don't know, but I'd say it's a wait and see thing. The peso has already fallen. I think it's around 4,100 to the dollar today. It was around 3,900 a couple months ago, and I think that depending upon what Petro does, on one hand, it can actually make it a lot cheaper for the expat in Colombia. On the other hand, I would say keep an eye on the security situation, because if the peso falls and inflation skyrockets, then you're going to see, street crime and insecurity.
Yeah, I mean,
Though
you have more people that don't have enough money to eat, so then there's going to be more crime. Yeah, obviously.
exactly. We already have global supply chain shocks and inflation with food. In Ecuador, they're rioting over food right now. The indigenous are rioting against Lasso, the president down there. And so you already have those pressures that are building up, and where they go, it's kind of hard to say. So I say wait and see. I'm not panicking. I don't think it's the end of the world. Even in the worst case scenario, it took Chavez a long time to do what he did. But I don't think that this guy, it looks like he's trying to show us that he's not a Chavez. Now, the best case scenario, you look at Uruguay, and you had Mujica, Jose Mujica, Pepe Mujica was an ex-guerrilla, and everybody was worried. But by all accounts, he had a successful administration. He negotiated a free trade agreement with the United States, and maybe this guy is going to be a Mujica and not a Chavez. And Karl Popper said optimism is a duty.
Optimism is a duty. How would you? The most recent one I can think of is Peru. I believe it was Peru or Chile. I think it was Peru had big elections. They elected a, let's say leftist president, and there was a lot of fear with Peruvians, but I haven't really heard anything since. I know there was a lot of, like, Bank of America was busy every day opening brokerage accounts for Peruvians moving their money over, and it was a crazy time for a couple months. And I feel like we're about to enter that with Colombia. How would you, if you know anything about that, and how would you kind of compare it? Because you seem pretty in touch with all this stuff.
Yeah, so I think that both countries did elect kind of leftist presidents recently. They're two very different cases. So in Chile, you had a situation where you have this young guy, his brother was killed by Pinochet, and the guy that he defeated was a Pinochet defender. So it was kind of like a human rights issue. Chile has had some discontent, even though it tends to be Latin America's most capitalist free market economy.
Which one?
Chile.
Oh, okay.
So the guy there, so far, it doesn't seem like, and I haven't been as up on Chile as in Peru, where they elected the school teacher from a rural school teacher from up on a mountain. Peru is already suffering political paralysis. The Congress kind of and the president dissolve each other every couple. They had a upheaval for the past several years. He defeated Keiko Fujimori, who's the daughter of the jailed Alberto Fujimori, who was in jail for a lot of human rights and corruption abuses. She herself was accused of a lot of that. And so in both cases, you still have kind of wait and see situations, though Chile is a lot more functional as a government. And where Peru is just going through some convulsions. It's not like military coup type of convulsions, but Peru is kind of in a state of political paralysis. We don't have that here. I think what can save Colombia and insulate Colombia is it seems to have a higher degree of institutionalism. That's to say, checks and balances with the Congress and the Supreme Courts. I do think you'll have more fiscal stability. You're not going to come in and like rip up all the free trade agreements from one minute to another.
Yeah.
And also, what I think is a big damper on instability in Colombia to an extent, because it's still a sovereign country, is Colombia has a very close relationship with the United States. And to a certain degree depends on the United States. And Petro knows that, he has to, or it would be prudent. He doesn't have to, but he understands the prudence of working with the U.S. I've spoken already with U.S. diplomats, and they're very open to having a constructive relationship with Petro and really want to work with him. They understand policy differences and things like that, but they want to be an ally. And I've gotten this from them privately and personally. So it's not just, I think, a talking point. I think that's where the U.S. stands on it.
Oh, that's good. I'm trying to think of other questions, but really we've talked about, it's all speculation from this point, right? We have the new president, it worked. We have, the elections went through peacefully. They got the transition of power. It all went through, and now it's just kind of wait and see. Is he already acting and doing stuff, or is there like a kind of a slow trip period when they have to like
Great question. He takes over. Yeah, he takes over August 7th. They'll have the inauguration and all that kind of thing.
The inauguration, yeah.
Yeah, he's already met with the outgoing president. They had a cordial meeting. one of the things I look at, I mean, I talked to a friend of mine who's a doctor the other day, and a lot of high income Colombians are nervous. And what they're doing, they're not fleeing the country, but they're already moving to position assets and to look at the alternatives. They're looking at things like setting up in the United States or setting up entities in the United States or doing different things. And I think that people, as you know, when people are wealthy, they do this anyway, even if they're perfectly happy where they are. It's just a prudent thing to do. But people kind of see, you know, I have a saying, it's like when you move early, you're an expat. When you move late, you're a refugee. Okay, I've got friends
Yeah,
I've got friends in the Ukraine.
yeah.
So I think that I have seen some people who are not even millionaires or anything, but just relatively wealthy Colombians going, what are my options and what can I do? And how can I do this now before like some law comes into place that prevents them? Right now, there are no currency controls. So how can I do anything in case in a worst case scenario like Argentina, the government puts those currency controls into
And
place?
Argentina is crazy with that. To buy dollars cost you pay 20% off the value of the dollar to buy a dollar. It's
Which, as you know, creates a black market.
yeah, there's a black market for dollars in Argentina. Yeah, exactly. It's just it's unfortunate. I mean, for Argentinians at least, I know I work with many Argentinians, and that's what I'm helping a lot of people with is like exploring the options and U.S. immigration, Panama immigration. There's a lot of countries that are close. I mean, Panama. I mean, I talk from my experience. I was in Panama last month. A lot of Panamanians, local Panamanians, are very concerned about this too because of there's only 8 million Panamanians. There could be 8 million Colombians that move to Panama and then just like completely take over the country. So it's the local country. It's just a huge country, so all the neighboring countries it affects everyone. So it's that's what I've seen a lot of the fears in Central and Latin America, South America specifically. I mean, Central America is smaller and less populated, and in kind of like Panama is pretty stable, but like all of South America, huge countries, even Brazil included, of course, it's unstable. You never know what's going to happen, and it seems more like 0 to 100. It's like something crazy could happen or nothing happens or something, and it's I don't know. Do you see that ever changing? Do you ever see this like kind of like politics normalizing, or is the media gonna? I mean, I say the media, but is the media gonna be stroking the fire all the time and just keeping it way down there? Because even in the U.S., nothing really ever happens. There's there's some, you know what I mean? There's some drama out here, but not that much actually changes. Stuff does actually change in Latin America. Do you see it like kind of stabilizing so that there's not all this drama between elections every year?
Great question. And if I think about, I'll take Colombia for example. I mean, most of my adult life dealt with Latin America and the Caribbean, but my first time in Colombia was probably around 2004. And if I think of that 18 or so years, I've seen a lot of changes. The first time I was in Colombia, I remember going to a police checkpoint and they said, "There's no government beyond here." We were outside of Cali. I headed towards the Pacific coast. And if you go beyond there, you're in Farc territory. And this was when Ingrid Betancourt, who ran for president in this past election, was still captive in the jungle. Two American contractors were captive in the jungle. The Farc was running around, the ELN. And so things have absolutely gotten better, but the challenges are still there. I think that, and what this is something that I do have to credit the incoming president, at least with talking about. Now, what he does, sometimes the medicine is the wrong one and not the cure, but Colombia is one of Latin America's most unequal countries. And if you're in the upper income bracket, you can live like you do in the United States. You have everything, the best steaks, molecular gastronomy, air conditioning, heating. I got fiber optic here to the house, but there are a lot of people who it's just not even they don't even have electric. Okay, they don't have any internet. There was a big several hundred. It was like $200 million program to bring internet connectivity to rural children so that they could study and get online. And the people that won the contract stole all the money and bought condos in Miami. Okay, the Colombian government had to go and get the FBI involved and Department of Justice to try to snatch the assets back. And the problem is that So you have people who, even if I want to do my part and I want to get the best education I can and I want to go to college and things like that, there are a lot of people where there's no real path for you to get this. Not like, I can go get a Pell Grant in the U.S. or a student loan or something like that. There's no way for me to join those people eating pizza in the nice neighborhood. And so that inequality that you have creates a lot of social tension. And I think that it's less than it was 20 years ago. I know a lot of people who are the first generation in their family to go to college. I know people who are one generation removed from being victims of violence. But there's a long way to go. And I think that as Colombia and other countries close that gap, they can progress. You can look at Costa Rica. Costa Rica right now has a problem where their incomes are so high, they're not competitive because they're making basically US incomes. Okay, I know people down here in Colombia in their 20s, Colombian kids from a regular family, not a poor family, but not a professional family, who are working directly for US companies making several $1,000s a month, which in Colombia puts you in the top 1%.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So there are opportunities. I think the case is to widen the base of those people able to take advantage of those opportunities. Education and access to infrastructure, the two keys.
And I think I would say most people want that. It's just how you get there, and that's the whole
Yes.
argument of politics, right? That's the whole thing. And I imagine Petro is going to be obviously pushing for that as well. It's just like, how do you get there? And it seems like they even tried. Like, that's ridiculous, paying 200 million for the infrastructure stuff. And they just buying condos in Miami.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. So I guess I can't believe that. So yeah, I mean, it's just getting over that kind of stuff. And I think those are similar issues in all of South America, right? I mean, just the income gap is even more drastic than other countries.
And I want to say something really important. One thing that I have to admire about Colombia is, in Colombia, at least the people who went and stole that money, they went and caught them. It wasn't the politicians, it was the contractors. Okay. It was like in Colombia.
Oh, I mean, yeah, the Colombia is not unique to fraud. I mean, you look
Right.
at the U.S. PPP loans and the EIDL
Mhm.
loans. The U.S. government was defrauded by over like $550 billion. It was
Oh
ridiculous.
yeah.
It's
So at least they catch you. I
estimated.
mean,
Yeah.
the good thing about Colombia is that if you're a crooked politician or contractor, at least you're not going to sleep well at night, because they do tend to prosecute you. You don't really get impunity because you're pals with the president or something like that. They are good about that. So these people stole the money. Within 4 months, they were prosecuted and caught, and the FBI is helping them, and the people are already in jail now. And it wasn't like the government stole the money. It was
Yeah.
it was just a
Well,
contract.
it's never the government. The people steal from the government.
Right.
It's usually
And
the
they caught
government
them.
officials. Yeah, but yeah, exactly. And I mean, that goes on everywhere. The
Mhm.
padding contracts, giving contracts to friends. I mean, that's how it's done. I mean, as long as he gets that happened in Panama with Martinelli, he got a
Right.
lot done, but a lot of people were paid extra under the table. But he did get a lot done, so a lot of people still like him because he still built the Cinta Costera, but it cost $20 million more than it should have. So like,
Mhm.
that's that. It depends. It's the cost
In
of doing
Panama,
business.
they don't, or Colombia, they don't come and get you at night anymore. For the most part, now Colombia has cleaned up its act. The Human Rights Report just came out this week, which I think is a major step. There's a lot of social healing that needs to be done, because you've got people who, on one hand, they were maybe victimized by the military. Then you have people that were victimized by drug traffickers or paramilitaries or the left-wing rebels. And there's a lot of bitterness. Okay, there's a lot of social bitterness. And how do you go to somebody where you go, well, the false positive scandal where the military was killing kids and dressing them up as rebels. The kids were just regular kids; they weren't criminals or anything, and shooting them and saying, "Look how many rebels we killed." On the other hand, you have the people that the rebels killed and kidnapped. I mean, they're still out there. The ELN is still out there.
So let's take it back a second. Can you give me, because assume I'm ignorant, can you give me a little breakdown of the whole Farc situation? I mean, give me a 2-minute summary of why the Farc separation with Colombia, and I only know a little bit. So tell me a little bit, like, how that started, and where it
Okay.
is now. And I assume that like the idea is Petro is going to try and shut it down and like end the conflict, because it sounds like it's been like a quasi civil war kind of thing.
Right. So, and this is going to be a gross oversimplification. Let
Yes,
me
that's what I'm
qualify it
looking
that
for.
way. And number two, let me also clarify that it's not my specific area of expertise, but I know a little bit about it. So
Sure.
back
Yeah.
in the 60s, maybe you can go back to the 50s. Now you can go even back if you want to, but let's you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
So you had so part of the problem in Colombia, also the case in Brazil and these big countries, is you have a lot of wilderness in Colombia. You have a lot of area where there's just no government presence. So it's
Yeah.
like in the U.S. you had the Wild West, but in the U.S. Ma and Pa had guns, and Bad Bart had guns. Okay, but down in Colombia, Bad Bart has guns, but Ma and Pa don't have guns.
The
So you
Wild
had
West is more visibility than the jungle. You know, can find
well, you
people,
have
but yeah.
out like the mountain there, like you're like a small. You've got your little ranch, you've got your little family homestead farm. You're growing bananas or whatever you're growing out way out in the middle of nowhere, and
Or
so
everything.
some
Growing
land
everything.
thieves
Yeah.
come, right? So land thieves come and they're going to steal your land. Now they might be big bad ranchers like in the old westerns, or they might be just thieves, or they might be drug traffickers who want to control land to either force you to grow cocaine, or they want your land for transportation routes or whatever. So they force you off your land or tell you what you have to grow or whatever, terrorize you. Now, so the FARC first started as like people who were kind of fighting back against these land thieves, but then they kind of got co-opted back in the 60s. You know, communism was glamorous to a lot of people back then, Cuba and all the revolution and all this stuff like that. So they got co-opted by political actors. Same thing happened with the ELN, a little bit different. ELN was actually started by some activist priests who were communists. You know, you had liberation theology was a movement back then. So these were armed actor groups. Now, then you had the paramilitaries that started as the auto defenses. They were started by like ranchers who now these FARC people are coming raiding them. And the ranchers are like, we're going to get together and form something. Now, the government's nowhere to be found because they're just weak out in the area. They don't have the forces to send out there and impose
Probably
order.
don't even know about half of it. Yeah.
They didn't know, and honestly, they didn't care. Okay,
Yeah.
you know, you're poor, you're not politically powerful. You know, it's a very different social situation than you have up north, where if you're a little nobody and you don't count, you don't count. So the government doesn't get any political benefit by protecting a penniless peasant, for lack of a better word. So they don't protect them. So these guys organize to protect themselves. Pretty soon, the next thing you know, the paramilitaries on one side, the rebels on another side, are all involved in all kind of different things like extortion and drugs and things like that. The difference is that the rebels with the FARC and the ELN also added all of this communist Marxist ideology to it, Maoist ideology. With the ELN, it was some liberation theology added to it. Pastor Olave, I think, was the founder, the guy's name or whatever. But anyway, but the groups were all criminal groups. They're all they try to romanticize it. They were fighting for the little guy. They're kidnapping little guys and they're forcing child soldiers to fight. They're forcing they're a bunch of rapists and thugs, all of them. Okay, and the right wing paramilitaries, the left wing groups. Then you have these narco traffickers who are not politically aligned. They're just mafia. They don't care about right or left.
There's
They're
no
just
money.
mafia.
Yeah, it's working. They don't care.
So those were where all these groups came from. Now in 2016, Juan Manuel Santos, who was the defense minister under previously under Alvaro Uribe, was one. He had a reputation for being an effective fighter against these rebel groups as a defense minister, but as president, he negotiated with the FARC to lay down their arms. Historic Peace Accord, he got the Nobel Prize for it. Uribe had done something earlier with the right wing, with the AUC right wing paramilitary rebels. Santos negotiated that with the FARC. It was very controversial at the time. About half of Colombians supported it, half of Colombians didn't, not because they didn't support peace, but they didn't support what they saw as impunity for
Let
criminals
them go. Let them go.
off the hook, that kind of
And
thing.
I understand how these groups have been existing and operating for 50 years. So that's why they're so entrenched, and that's why
Right.
they're so, yeah.
Now, most of the FARC people said, okay, we're going to, put down our arms and not be FARC. A lot of them who were making a bunch of money off of drugs and things like that, or just whatever reasons didn't agree, they became the FARC dissidents. So they went back out in the jungle, said, we're not going to abide by that. We're going to keep existing. They're still out there, and they're basically drug dealers and extortionists and they're way out they're way out in the jungle. They're not like, for the most part, they're, you don't come to visit Colombia and you're not going to worry about them in Bogota or
Yeah,
Medellin.
you're not gonna go. I mean, if
Right.
you, yeah, exactly. It's like the I heard the stories about the Americans trying to hike through the Darien Gap. I'm like, yeah, go for it, but they got kidnapped and stuff. Yeah, so thank you for the explanation. That's actually extremely informative, and I feel like I understand a lot more. And thank you for also breaking down the change about the presidency. I know we went into it's impossible for me not to digress when I'm talking to people, especially good conversationalists, because I'm not a professional interviewer either. But I appreciate all of your insights in this. So let's recap really quick. I'm gonna recap what I learned, and you can correct me. Petro and Francia Marquez, right? New presidents coming in August 8th. Different political party. They want to still improve Colombia, probably spending more money, lowering oil exports. A lot of upper class Colombians are scared about the currencies and currency devaluation, also potential rules and regulations and taxes that may come on them for new laws. And I guess the lower class, like the disenfranchised, the poor people, whatever you want to call them, are, I guess, excited and probably voted him in, hoping that he can improve the general standard of living in Colombia. And now we're at wait and see.
You're largely correct, though it's just like in the US. You have, like the people who are like Bernie Sanders, they go, how come the poor people in West Virginia, where my mom's from, or in Texas, or in Mississippi don't support me? Okay. So what happens in Colombia, you have a lot of poor people who don't want anything to do with Petro.
Well, Petro also is going to raise the tax for poor people potentially. Broaden the tax base, you said.
He's going to broaden the tax base, but it's going to affect people making over $1,000 a month, which in Colombia is not poor. It sounds poor in the US, but in Colombia, that puts you into the middle income bracket.
Okay.
So the poor people that are out that are not really affected by that directly. But yeah, I mean, you can say that Petro's support, his broad support, comes from those at lower income brackets. And just like in the US, you kind of have this liberal intellectual class, like the Columbian University types and that kind of thing. They're
the actors of Hollywood. Yeah.
They're looking, exactly. Now they're looking for jobs, but Colombia is very socially divided. So just like the US, you can't really go the rich guy likes him and the poor guy likes him. But you can also oversimplify it, but in a way that makes sense, and say Colombia just elected Bernie Sanders. Okay, and that's gonna get you a long way to understing what just happened in Colombia.
So Colombia just elected Bernie Sanders. I guess the political opposite of Bernie Sanders, who lived a normal long-term politician life in Vermont his whole life. So this guy has a little bit more history. But that's Loren, thank you so much for coming on the call and teaching me about all this stuff. And I hope that anyone watching this, if you want to hear more from Loren, check out financecolombia.com. I'll put all the links in the description, of course. He's on there, right? He said he's writing an article now. I would love to do more videos with you, Loren. I think this is great. If you speak Spanish, do you speak Spanish? You do, right?
Claro que sí. Podemos hacerlo en español también para tus clientes hispanohablantes.
Oh, we're gonna crush this video in Spanish. We're gonna do the same call again in Spanish because I assume you'd speak Spanish. You live in Colombia for 18 years. So so anyways, follow Loren on Finance Colombia, subscribe to this channel. I'm gonna be doing more with Loren. And if you're Colombian, where optimism is a responsibility, right? And I'm optimistic too. But if you want to diversify your assets, it's also always a good job. Send us an email, and I'm happy to help you explore immigration options in the US and Panama, as well as investment accounts, moving money, receiving money in the US, all things finance and tax in the US and globally. So that's
all my readers that are Colombian, or not just Colombian, but foreign nationals, need to that have assets, and they want to look at doing strategies, not even just asset protection, but a lot of times you have perfectly legitimate reasons where you need to set up different entities and things like that. And James is I can personally vouch. He's been a great help to me. And he's the person that I recommend everyone I come into contact with go, this is my situation, call James. And I will continue to do that because I can speak and testify personally as to your abilities and to your acumen at what you do.
Hey, well, now I know you're a South American political expert too, and I appreciate your time again, Loren. And I'll see you on the next video. Thanks, man.